Hello there, welcome to this edition of Global Business Africa. In the next hour, we'll make a speed run through all the key business news stories you need to know about across the African continent. From Cairo to Joburg, Nairobi and Lagos, we've got you covered. Here's what's coming up. Cashless payment systems on public transport take off in Kenya, but we'll be looking at the pros and cons. Cocoa production in Cote d'Ivoire starting to feel the heat from the Ebola crisis in West Africa. And we meet a man who's thinking outside the box to earn a living, partly by making the ladies look lovely. Now let's start tonight in East Africa, where with the introduction of the My 1963 card, it's a bit of a mouthful, apologize for that, Kenya now has two electronic payment systems for public transport which rely on near-field communication in order to work. Now one simply has to first sign up to use the My 1963 system using a national identity card or a passport or either one. Top up the card and then you can use it to pay for your fare on any public service vehicle. That at least is the theory. A July deadline for Kenya's notoriously chaotic public transport sector to adopt electronic payment systems was moved to December 2014 instead. And between BebaPay and now My 1963, Kenya's government is looking to increase transparency and security. Due to its largely cash-based transactions, the Kenya Revenue Authority for a very long time has been unable to properly tax this sector. In theory, the switch to electronic payment systems is expected to also cut corruption between drivers and police, as well as carjacking of public service vehicles. Now, by some estimates, over 90% of transactions that take place in this country are still cash-based, and that, of course, does include PSVs. The adoption of these electronic payment systems has also raised further questions about interoperability and the incentives to switch to electronic payment systems over cash-based ones. Let's dig deeper into the subject with Angela Okune. She's the research lead at iHub, and she's been studying Kenya's efforts to introduce cashless payment systems in its public transport sector for over a year now. Thank you for your time.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Let's start with a broad idea of interoperability. And the My 1963 system, of course, was partly inspired by partly set up rather by Matatu owners. Will this perhaps give it a better chance of being adopted by that sector?
So I think it's a step in the right direction towards incorporating more stakeholders, but I think unfortunately they've missed on a key stakeholder group, perhaps the most important, which really are the implementers. Those at the ground. Those are the Matatu touts as well as the drivers. And so unfortunately, I hope that they can be incorporated into broader discussions.
But what exactly is the issue at play here? Why are these individuals so extremely important in adoption of this particular system?
So there are incentives at play that are actually favor cash. So there are two different levels here. We have the owners of the public service vehicles, and we also have, as I mentioned, those at the ground, the drivers, the conductors. And so both groups prefer to have cash. One is to prevent taxation. That's on the owner side.
Because that remains entirely off the radar.
Exactly. But those at the ground also have the incentive to remain cash-based. And this is because once they give whatever flat rate to the owners who own the vehicles, they can pocket the rest of the money. So usually this is where a lot of unknown exists. So we're not exactly sure how much money actually circulates through the public transport sector. It's estimated at about 2.5 billion Kenyan shillings.
But what about the aspect of bribery as well? Presumably all these drivers and touts need to remain liquid in order to be able to actually grease the palms of whatever checkpoints they run into.
Exactly. So this is where, you know, the purported benefits of a cashless system would come in. But I think that we'll probably find some creative ways to get around those.
But we've got two systems here introduced within the span of about 12 months. Can they talk to each other?
There are actually 8 different systems.
8?
Yes. So this is where one of the key issues of this cashless PSV system is currently there are almost too many systems, and right now there's no industry standard.
They can't talk to each other?
Not as it is, no.
So if I have, say, a My 1963 card, I can't get onto a Matatu that has, say, Google's BebaPay and say, okay, I can pay this?
Currently, no. So there are different systems, and this is the other issue. There continue to be new systems coming out almost monthly. some of which are starting to address the interoperability issue, but it's still at the heart of how much can these systems talk to each other. So I think the worst case scenario would be if you're just taking one route, let's say from Dandora to Westlands, and you end up having to buy 5 different cards just to make that one trip.
But who's at the forefront of trying to make this interoperability a reality among all those 8 systems that we're looking at?
So right now we're waiting for some leadership, I would say, and as the deadline of December 1st gets closer, it's a bit worrying, to be honest, because the whole reason that 6 months ago the deadline was pushed so that discussions like this could continue. Unfortunately, we haven't seen them continue, and personally I would advise that we opt more for a cash light rather than a cashless system, because the routes aren't equipped with this hardware yet.
When you say cash light, what exactly do you mean? What's the difference between electronic and cashless and cash light?
So cash light, in the sense that I'm using it, implies that you're able to still use cash, but also, if you prefer to, can use any of the various card systems.
So 2 systems running concurrently side by side.
Because for now, as a commuter, as a user of matatus, you want to just get from point A to point B. You don't want to complicate your life. And to be honest, most people just want to get to work, right? So I think, yes, there are benefits in terms of corruption and increased revenue for the government, but as commuters, it seems like it's just going to be more expensive and more inconvenient.
One last question for you. What is it we know and do not know about the public service transport sector? Because it would seem to me that that lack of information seems to have led to this lopsided policy that we have now.
That's right. I think the policies currently are based on many assumptions. We don't have enough solid evidence to inform these policies. And as I have researched, we're trying to actually crowdsource for more data using the hashtag cashless PSV to get users' experiences on the various systems being implemented around Kenya.
All right, brilliant. We'll have to leave it there. Angela Okune, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Cashless PSVs is the hashtag.
Yes.
What handle can we reach you on?
At Honolulu Sky.
All right, there you have it. So in case you're actually interested in contributing to the research, now you know exactly where to forward your data. Let's move on now to South Africa's Department of Trade and Industry. Recently, it hosted a range of local companies on a trade mission over to China. This is all part of an effort to create more business opportunities for South African businesses to expand their reach. Angelo Coppola caught up with one Cape Town-based entrepreneur upon her return.
Entrepreneurs from all sectors of the South African economy went to China, including participants in perhaps the sector which is best known internationally, the country's wine industry, located in the Western Cape province. Some are already doing business there and returned to China in search of more opportunities. China already accounts for some 30% or 4 million bottles of premium wine in this particular case.
We do business at the moment with 12 different distribution companies, and we export about 3 containers a month to China at the moment.
The business leaders spent time in several cities, and it culminated in attending the Western China International Fair in Chengdu, and then it was off to Shanghai.
The South African government and the Chinese government created a phenomenal platform for us in each city where we could interact with our clients and establish relationships further.
While every effort is made to ensure that every aspect of the trade mission is taken care of, there is one major challenge.
Language is always a challenge doing business in China, especially in cities like Beijing. So I think more care needs to be given to the selection of translators that we use, perhaps translators with a little bit of a background on industry-related matters. But otherwise, it always says if you go to China, it's like meeting your friends, and if they're friends, they'll buy your wine.
But like any true entrepreneur, everyone is seeking more opportunities and looking for more business.
The companies that I'm selling wine to all want to do other business with me too. They keep on asking me, what else can we do? Can we not export to you? Can we import other products? So they are seeking relationships, a win-win relationship from both ends. So they're hungry to do business with us. So I think it's a great match, and I see big potential for South Africa and China going forward.
Trade missions are very intense and highly concentrated visits, and business executives have to be alive to the opportunities that are presented to them. It could mean the difference between successfully closing a deal or missing out on a lifetime opportunity. It seems, though, that with trade increasing between these two countries, opportunities abound on both sides. I'm Angelo Coppola for CCTV.
Over 300 delegates, including government officials from Africa and China, are taking part in the 5th Africa-China Poverty Reduction and Development Conference. That's taking place in the Ethiopian capital of Addis Ababa. Scholars, researchers and representatives from international bodies are debating this year's theme, which focuses on industrial development as well as perspectives from both Africa and China. Delegates are focusing on industrial development as a means to economic diversification, especially away from agriculture, which forms the bedrock of most African economies. Poverty reduction is also a topic in focus at the event.
China and Africa are sincere friends, and China's support will greatly enable Africa to accelerate its rapidly growing economy. China's readiness to closely cooperate with Africa and join a hand with Africans is demonstrated in its initiation of FOCAC mechanism as a platform to pursue common interests of China and African countries, and that is indeed a source of great satisfaction for all of Africans.
We always paid attention to maintain our cooperation and communication with all the countries and the relevant international organizations in this regard. In the past, in the future, we're going to stick to this principle and to carry out a lot of theory study, knowledge sharing, information sharing, and the communication on best practices systematically and comprehensively in this regard. And we would like to facilitate the communication between China and Africa's communication and other developing nations to together upgrade our development capabilities and make new contributions to world poverty alleviation.
As far as the markets are concerned, it's a bit of a mixed bag out there. Over in East Africa, the NSE 20-share index in Nairobi is relatively flat. The muscular gains have kept on seen from North Africa. The EGX30 do continue to pile on. It was up 0.6 today. However, the NSE in Nigeria and the JSE Africa All-Share Index all went down by about 0.5 on the day. Now, Kenya set for a charm offensive to attract investments within its borders. We'll have the details on that fairly shortly. And cocoa production in Cote d'Ivoire is starting to feel the heat of the Ebola crisis. We'll have a report from the country shortly. Africa is on the move. It's home to 7 of the world's 10 fastest growing economies. We help you make sense of the fast-changing African business landscape. We take you where the business is happening.
Food security is a major challenge for most African nations, yet agriculture is a backbone of these economies. But with technologies like hydroponics, there is hope of food availability all year round.
Welcome back to the program. In a matter of hours, East Africa's biggest economy will be hosting its first two-day investment conference as the state here intensifies efforts to woo foreign investors into the country. Some 2,000 potential investors from over 100 countries are expected to attend the event in the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. The government aims to showcase potential investment opportunities and to gather ideas on what efforts to enhance private investments are working and which ones still need a bit of improvement. Now then, let's assess Kenya's investment profile in a lot more detail now. Anne Kirima Mushoki is the chairperson of the Kenya Investment Authority. She's with me in studio right now. Thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you for having me.
You're having a fairly interesting event tomorrow, but let's start first and foremost with the World Bank Doing Business report. It's often criticized as portraying African countries in a, should we say, negative light. Would you agree with those sentiments with regard to Kenya?
Well, the World Bank report actually has been very positive about Africa this year when it was speaking about foreign direct investment. And in fact, what it did note is that despite the gloomy headlines, investors to Africa are defying them and continuing to come here. In fact, the World Bank report estimated that in 2010, we had about $24 million invested in sub-Saharan Africa, and in 2015 they're expecting $35 million. So, you know, I think that investment in Africa now, it's unstoppable. The growth is there, the interest is there, and the people are ready to interact.
So there are no concerns, at least from KIA's perspective, about the accuracy of the data contained in that report?
Well, obviously, we would prefer a more positive report, but what I can tell you from where we sit, we are inundated with inquiries of investing in Kenya, because very many investors see Kenya as a launch pad to East and Central Africa.
Yeah.
So businesses wanting to expand into the area very much view Kenya as their starting point.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about security, because that really has dominated the headlines, at least in Kenya over the last, for most of the year, to put it bluntly. As yet, no one's been convicted for the killings that took place in Mpeketoni or Kapedo, and security remains a key concern for investors and citizens alike. What are you doing with the Interior Ministry to solve this?
Well, obviously, our docket is not security, so it's very hard for me to give a comment directly on that.
Yeah.
What I can say to you is that despite those, you know, that situation, investors have really continued. You'd expect them to be largely deterred, but what is attracting investors to Kenya is the undisputable high returns. Our stock exchange is now getting a return of about 25%, you know, and the returns are there. If you look at the growth rate of our economies, there was 5% last year. This year, Kenya is predicting a growth rate of 6.5%. And so with that growth, investors are still very interested. And this is why many people, despite you know, our gloomy headlines, are continuing to invest here.
What about county level taxes? Because there's been a dispute between business and county level governments about the taxes that are being levied. Mombasa, for example, proposed in its finance bill a few months ago to actually tax cargo going into and coming out of the port. Surely these are matters of concern to investors as well.
Well, definitely taxes is a deterrent for investors, but I must say that is very much, you have to look at that very much in balance with the high opportunity for investment within counties. And I can tell you right now what Kenya has done by having the 47 counties is opening 47 frontiers of potential investment. And you will see most governors now actually going out there to market their counties as potential investment areas. And it's really, really very exciting for the country. So there are some difficulties, of course. And I think that, you know, I think we also have to give ourselves a chance. You know, the county system of government is a new system of government with the new constitution. Of course, there'll be some teething problems, but I can assure you the agenda of any governor and all governors is to develop their counties. And if they bring policies that deter investors, they'd be quite quick to review them. So
to put it bluntly then, you've got 47 different avenues for investment, and all of these individuals have to compete for pretty much the same pot of money. Therefore, in that competition, you should see the more innovative ones rise to the top to actually attract the FDI that we're looking for.
Well, I mean, that's a more simplistic way of looking at it, but it's actually slightly different, because you will find that each county has a specific strength that perhaps another county doesn't. So although there are investment opportunities generally, each county is offering a different set of opportunities. So whereas some investors would go to, for instance, coast, because they're interested in aspects that are available in the coast. Another completely different set will go to Turkana because that's where they want the oil. A different set will come to Nairobi because they're interested in maybe transport or other things that are specific to Nairobi. So it's a different basket depending on the geography and the location, the strengths and the weaknesses of each county. So it's not technically as simplistic as you're putting it.
One last question for you. What should we expect tomorrow? Quite a few projects, I understand it, are being showcased to potential investors. In 30 seconds, what should we expect?
I think you should expect unlimited possibilities. I think Kenya is really a destination that everybody wants to come to, and we are telling them we are open for business, and we really are. We are open for business for international people, but also for local investors. We want Kenyans to also invest more in Kenya and to be involved in the big projects, to come together in groups and do the oil pipeline, do exploration, do the big projects. We don't believe at all that's exclusively for foreign investors. Kenya has a very strong, you know, history of chamas and coming together to do, a big financial investment. And so we want Kenyans also to come and see what they can do.
All right.
Because ultimately, it's for us. Kenya
Right.
is for us.
We'll have to leave it there, but thank you very much for your time this
Thank
evening.
you for having me.
We've been speaking to Anne Kirima Mushoki. She's a chairperson of the Kenya Investment Authority. The Kenyan Investment Conference, of course, does start later on tomorrow. We'll have the details on what goes on over there right here on CCTV Africa. Let's talk about cocoa production in West Africa. It is on a roll, and that, frankly, is putting it mildly. Output hit a record this year in both Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire. Next season looks quite promising. Life, however, is a little less sweet for the world's largest cocoa producer. The Ebola outbreak has set Cote d'Ivoire on edge. Clementine Logan has that story on what's hot tonight.
Growers like Le Pierre have been eking a living from this land in eastern Cote d'Ivoire for decades. Finding workers and growing enough to get by are the usual concerns here. But Ebola has given them something new to worry about. The virus has killed thousands over the border in Liberia and Guinea.
Ebola is a very serious disease. I would say it's even worse than HIV and AIDS. We are all worried. The government must help us rural workers. The state must take measures to protect Cote d'Ivoire.
Because we planters work in the bush and contamination comes from wild animals, we are very worried. And also because the virus could potentially prevent us from doing our work.
Cote d'Ivoire produced 1.45 million tonnes of cocoa last season and supplies around 40% of the world's beans. Much of it goes out through this port, San Pedro, in the southwest. Many, though, worry about what else could come in through here. Port authorities began monitoring incoming ships for Ebola last month. Some 3,000 crew have been tested for symptoms, so far all negative.
Local growers seem confident that government measures are enough to keep Ebola at bay. But exporters here are still concerned, and they say just a few cases along the border with Liberia and Guinea would be enough to disrupt the flow of cocoa beans.
This has raised fears of potential supply shortages, driving prices up and prompting major exporters like Nestlé South Africa to ship cocoa at a faster pace. Others, though, say these fears are overblown.
With all the teams deployed to different towns along the border, at our ports and airports, I don't think we'll see any case of Ebola in Cote d'Ivoire.
And the government is convinced it can contain any outbreak. This would minimise the risk of quarantining entire regions, which exporters fear would prevent the movement of cocoa.
The Coffee Cocoa Council has already contributed equipment and supplies to the Ministry of Health to reinforce our capacity to protect cocoa producers and make sure that if a case does emerge, it's immediately contained and doesn't spread.
The world's cocoa buyers will undoubtedly be keeping a close eye on Cote d'Ivoire. As for growers like Le Pierre, entire livelihoods are hanging in the balance. Clementine Logan, CCTV, San Pedro, Cote d'Ivoire.
Now, improving the sanitary quality of traditional African foods should help ensure food security on the continent. Those are the findings of a food conference organized by the Higher Polytechnic School of Dakar and the European Union held in the Senegalese capital. The two-day workshop saw participants demonstrate new ways of developing food products from raw materials native to Africa. The Congress ended with an exhibition of traditional African foods. It was launched in September 2010 for a period of 4 years and financed by the EU. This initiative, dubbed the AFTA Project, brings together 7 African countries and 4 European ones.
The traditional African foods is actually a neglected area of research and development, and one of the things that we're keen on doing is using our expertise as a partner and helping these traditional African foods become more widely available in the European markets, but also to make them more widely available in Africa as well.
During these 2 days, it was possible to share a lot of scientific knowledge about these African products that will contribute to the improvement of these products. In fact, AFTA project was indeed really important because most of these products were not known among several African countries, neither in Europe. And since now most of these products are already known in our countries, we did a lot of dissemination, and most of European consumers are prone to test and to consume this product.
Quick run through commodity prices here for you. Oil prices still taking an absolute beating, 75.65, one of the key numbers. That is specific to WTI a little earlier in trading today. Gold, however, posting some gains, up by over 100 or so basis points. So keeping a close eye, however, on the OPEC meeting on the 27th of November. Will they blink? Will they not? We'll have to wait and find out. As unemployment in Kenya continues to be quite the nightmare, we'll introduce you to a man who's thinking outside the box. He's making his money by making the ladies look good. Welcome back to the program. You're watching Global Business Africa from the Kenyan capital, Nairobi. Now, the unemployment rate among young people in Kenya is estimated to be double the national unemployment level of about 12.7%. That's according to a 2013 report by the United Nations Development Programme. This, however, has forced many young Kenyans here to think outside the box in their quest to create new ways of making a living. In Grassroots tonight, we focus on one young man who's found his niche around women's hair.
In this part of Nairobi, Kenya's capital, there is heavy foot traffic. Men push handcarts and carry heavy bags of vegetables. This, perhaps, is the last place getting a manicure and pedicure might be considered a priority. But some women here get a beauty treat, sometimes even twice a week.
This is my office and I have to look appealing. I have to look good. Every time I leave here, I want to look like someone who has left an office, not just going out with my apron or cap. No, I must look smart.
Duncan Ochieng is the man behind these beautiful nails. He is one of around 20 men who work as beauticians around Nairobi's Muthuro market. For every customer he attends to, Ochieng earns roughly $2.
This work has helped me in a lot of ways. For instance, I have built a house, I have bought a motorbike, it helps me get my daily bread, it helps me pay my rent, I dress nicely, I don't have a lot of challenges, I'm okay.
His business is mobile and the work has to be done fast. Ochieng's ability to render quick service makes him immensely popular.
I would say that being mobile is an advantage, unlike owning a shop. When you make rounds in the market, you get to win clients that are within. However, in the shops, they only pop in once in a while and they only come for the services during the evenings.
Ochieng started working in the market 7 years ago, and he admits the journey has been challenging. Not all female clients warmed up to the idea of a man doing their nails or trimming their eyebrows, but perceptions are slowly changing.
The first time, I decided to give him a chance and see how he would do it. I did not underestimate him because these days, men are qualified. They go to beauty schools and their skills are good. So I did not undermine him. I wanted to see for myself what a man can do.
Ochieng is now one of the most successful beauticians around this market, boasting about 1,000 regular clients. And his enterprise, it is hoped, will inspire other young people to become self-reliant. Peter Wakaba, CCTV.
And the business of beauty wraps up this edition of Global Business Africa. Send your feedback to globalbusinessafrica@cctv.com. And when we're offline, Facebook and Twitter are your ports of call. We'll see you in the next 23 hours. Thank you for watching. I'm Raman Yap.